Thank you, Charles, and thank you to everyone for making time to come join us today. It's always wonderful to be back in Ghana. As Charles mentioned, we go back a long time. I did my PhD fieldwork here in Ghana 22 years ago, and I try to get here every year, and it's always a pleasure. Thank you, thank you. One of the remarkable things about coming to Ghana almost every year is to see how rapidly it's changing before our eyes. I mean, even just the airport. So you probably don't, maybe because you see it every day. It's like a child who grows up. You see them every day. You don't see how big they are. But when I only see Ghana every year, I'm always amazed, and that's really something to be very proud of. My colleagues who have come, I'll introduce them in a second. This is their first trip to Ghana, and I was trying to give them just a little bit of a background on the country. And one of the first things I said is that Ghana is a bellwether for the entire continent. It is always about 10 years ahead of every other country on the continent. This goes back to independence, but that's also true today for the energy sector. So Ghana is essentially on track to universal access. I think our colleague Eben has shared that you're at about 85% access. But what I think is interesting is when you're close to universal access, the power system is still a constraint on GDP growth, and especially a constraint on job creation. You need to kind of shift your energy policy to a new phase. And that's because connecting everyone at home is very important. We want everyone to have lights at home, but lights at home does not translate into higher incomes, and lights at home does not help industry grow and create jobs for the population. And that's really the rationale for the Energy for Growth Hub, which we've just recently started. I was at the Center for Global Development for many years, and we started an energy program there, which has just been spun off as the Energy for Growth Hub, which is a global network focused on energy systems for job creation. So yes, we care about carbon emissions, and yes, we care about lights in people's homes. Those are both very important. But the objective of the Energy for Growth Hub is investment in the energy sector to create jobs. That is our ultimate metric. And so we have built a global network of fellows and advisors. We have about 20 Americans at different universities around the United States. One of them here with us today. And then we have scholars and advocates in Asia. We have people in Indonesia, in Thailand, in India. We have a new fellow in Cape Town. We have a research director in Nairobi. And we have several fellows in Abuja, where we just came from yesterday. And so we have our colleague Eben Nyarko Kumi here at Sunyani in Ghana, and we work closely with Charles and the team at the Institute. And what we're trying to do is create a global community of scholars and advocates who want to use evidence and data to promote the most efficient power systems for job creation. And that's really what we're trying to do. We're still just getting started, so we're very open to ideas. We're trying to figure out the best way to bring people together. One of those ideas are small workshops like this, where we bring different perspectives together to tackle the issues. But one thing I've just found really striking is that while the physics of electricity systems is the same everywhere, and the economics of electricity systems are basically around the power sector are different everywhere. And Nigeria and Ghana may be similar in certain ways. You almost have about the same effective electricity capacity, these two countries. But the issues faced here in Ghana, I think, are very, very different from what we heard from our Nigerian colleagues. So just very briefly, I'd like to introduce my colleagues who came with me. Jake Kinser is the coordinator for the Energy for Growth Hub. Like me, he's based in Washington, D.C. Tisha Schuler is here. She's a board member of the Hub. She has her own energy consulting firm in Colorado, which is in the mountains of the U.S., which is also the frontier of U.S. energy technology. That's where the oil and gas business is very big, but also we have our National Renewable Energy Laboratory is in her backyard. And she was the former president of the Colorado Oil and Gas Association, and we're really grateful she could join us on this trip. And then Mark, my colleague and friend, Mark Thurber, he's a professor at Stanford University, works on issues of energy and development, an engineer by training, but deep into the politics of oil and electricity markets. And Mark, we're also grateful for you coming. I met both Mark and Tisha largely through an effort at Stanford called the Stanford Natural Gas Initiative, which at that time was focused on how can natural gas be harnessed to promote development around the world. Tisha was leading that effort. And one of the striking things was that there were all of these big brains out at one of the premier universities in the US working on natural gas issues, but they weren't plugged into places like the Energy Commission here at Ghana. And that's the gap that we're hoping the Hub will help to fill. So I thank all of you for coming today. I look forward to fruitful discussions. So thank you.